Watch the defender's feet. Right before Kylian Mbappé gets the ball, they shift, just slightly, backward, almost involuntarily, like a body bracing for something it hasn't seen yet. That's not fear. That's memory. Somewhere in the last 5 years, defenders around the world learned a lesson the hard way, and now their nervous system reacts before their brain even catches up. This is the story of why Mbappé feels less like a football player and more like a glitch in the simulation. Here's the strange part. Mbappé often wins the play before he's even touched the ball. Watch his walk. Watch how he stands at the halfway line, almost bored, shoulders loose, like the game hasn't started for him yet. Defenders call it different things. Presence, aura. That heavy, invisible weight that shows up in a stadium the second his name gets read off the lineup. But here's what almost nobody notices. It isn't confidence in the usual sense. Confidence can be faked. This is something else. Something closer to inevitability. Like watching a storm on the radar 3 counties away, knowing exactly where it's going to land, and realizing there's nothing you can do to move the house. Real Madrid's defenders have talked about it in interviews for years. Not the pace, the anticipation of the pace. The mental tax of guarding a man who might explode left, might explode right, might simply stand still and let the fear do the work for him. Think about that. A player who scores just by existing in the right space. Go back to his early days at Monaco, before the world knew his name. Fullbacks twice his age were already adjusting their positioning based on a teenager who hadn't scored a single goal against them yet. Word travels fast in dressing rooms, faster than film sessions, faster than scouting reports. By the time he arrived in Paris, opposing coaches were already designing entire training weeks around one simple question. How do we keep him away from open grass? That question never really got answered. Watch how Parisian derbies changed the moment he stepped onto the pitch, even on nights where he barely touched the ball in the first 20 minutes. Commentators would say he was quiet. He wasn't quiet. He was loading. Go back to the 2018 World Cup. Argentina, round of 16. A 17-year-old kid receives the ball near his own half, and something happens that shouldn't be possible. He doesn't accelerate like a sprinter building up speed. He detonates, instantly. Full velocity in 2 touches, dragging an entire World Cup defense backward like they're running through wet sand. That wasn't just a fast player beating slow ones. That was the first time the football world collectively understood something had changed. And this is where everything changes. Because once defenders saw it happen to Argentina, they didn't fix the problem. They just started playing scared. And scared defenders make mistakes before the ball even arrives. So why does he feel faster than everyone else on the pitch, even players with better lab numbers? The uncomfortable truth is this: raw top speed isn't the secret. Mbappé's peak speed is elite, no doubt, but the real weapon is something coaches call first-step acceleration. The explosion from 0 to full sprint in a single stride. Most sprinters need 3 or 4 steps to reach top gear. Mbappé needs 1.5. Blink, he's already gone. Watch the 2022 World Cup final against Argentina. Down 2 goals, minutes ticking away, most players would be thinking about damage control. Instead, in under 2 minutes, Mbappé scores twice. The second one, a strike so violent, it looked like the ball had been fired from something other than a human leg. A body simply refusing to accept the geometry of the situation. The strange part is, biomechanics researchers have pointed to his stride pattern as unusually efficient. Long, low, almost gliding, minimizing the vertical bounce that slows most sprinters down. He doesn't run like he's fighting the ground. He runs like the ground is barely there. Compare it to peak PSG performances, where fullbacks were given specific instructions never to let him face them one-on-one in open space, because once he squares up a defender directly, the outcome is already decided. Coaches built entire defensive systems around denying him a starting line, the same way you'd design a cage around something dangerous. You can double-team a man. You can't double-team a decision. There's a reason sports scientists keep bringing up track sprinters instead of other footballers when they talk about him. His acceleration curve resembles something closer to a 100-meter specialist than a winger. Most footballers reach their fastest speed gradually, over 8 or 9 strides, the way a car merges onto a highway. Mbappé reaches his in a burst that looks almost illegal, like someone skipped several frames of the simulation.
And here's the part that gets overlooked constantly. He doesn't need the ball glued to his feet the way dribblers usually do. He plays it slightly ahead, into space, and simply outruns the geometry of the situation. Defenders aren't beaten by a trick, they're beaten by arithmetic. By the time they calculate the angle to intercept, the angle no longer exists. Look at Champions League nights against Real Madrid, a club he'd eventually join. Ironically, the same club whose fans used to hold their breath every time he got the ball in space. Even in matches PSG lost, defenders admitted afterward that facing him felt like defending against a countdown clock. You knew the explosion was coming, you just didn't know when. We'll come back to that feeling, the countdown clock, because it explains something deeper than speed. A fast player and a genuinely terrifying one are separated by exactly one thing. Speed without decision-making is just a highlight reel. Mbappé's real weapon is that he decides instantly, under maximum pressure, in situations most players' brains would still be processing. Watch him in must-win moments. The 2022 final again. Almost nobody watching thought a comeback like that was possible with the clock working against them. But Mbappé doesn't seem to experience pressure the way other players do. Or if he does, it looks identical to calm. That's the scariest part. Ambition, for him, isn't a personality trait you read about in interviews. It's visible in real time, in the way he demands the ball in the 89th minute instead of hiding from it. Great players want the moment. Special ones expect it. And this changes something in defenders psychologically before kickoff even happens. Coaches game plan for 90 minutes of containment, but containment isn't the same as control. You can slow a storm down, you still have to live through it landing eventually. That's why so many managers, when asked directly about defending him, avoid the question entirely. Not because they don't have a plan, because deep down they know the plan is temporary. Remember the years of transfer speculation, the entire continent debating where he'd play next. Most players would crack under that kind of noise. Mbappé used it as fuel, showing up to matches with the calm of someone who had already decided the ending before the questions even started. That's not arrogance. That's a different relationship with pressure altogether, one most professionals spend entire careers trying to fake. Even his goal celebrations tell you something. Rarely wild, rarely relieved, mostly calculated, almost expected, like a man checking something off a list he wrote years ago. Think about what that does to a human being standing 18 yards away, watching him receive the ball near the touchline, alone, in space, with time still on the clock. There's no shame in it. Some of the best defenders in the world have looked genuinely lost guarding him, not because they lack skill, but because containment was never designed to fight inevitability. They already know how this ends. They're just hoping this isn't the night it happens to them. But speed demons and final bosses aren't the only archetypes hiding inside modern football. There's another category entirely.
Players who don't overwhelm you with pace or explosiveness, but with something quieter. Something that looks almost lazy until the exact second it isn't. The kind of player defenders fear not because of what they can see coming, but because of what they can't. That's a different story, and it's coming next.